Today. My name is Ashley Riley, and I am the program coordinator working on the UNSHAME Kentucky campaign. I reside in Colorado, but Kentucky has a really special place in my heart because I went to treatment there and I have been sober almost 9 years. So we just have some housekeeping. People typically have some questions around logistics. So this webinar will be recorded and made available on the UNSHAME Kentucky website, and all attendees will be muted. Please use the question and answer panel at the bottom of your screen to ask questions. The chat is also available for general commentary, but will not be moderated as closely, but we'll try our best to moderate as close as we can. The interpreter will remain spotlighted throughout the webinar. And to adjust your view and see all speakers and panelists, click the view button in the top right corner of your screen, and then select speaker or gallery. Users can also select the side-by-side view. And then for closed captions, you can click the CC button on the bottom. So we'll do our little housekeeping, which we just did, and then now I'm going to tell you more about UNSHAME Kentucky, and we'll get into this amazing panel discussion for all of you. In the last 15 minutes, we will close out with some questions and answers section, but make sure to throw your questions in at any time you have them, and we'll try to get those answered. So the UNSHAME Kentucky webinar series is a partnership with the Kentucky Opioid Response Effort and Shatterproof. I want to give a special thanks to Kelly Sanchez from the ASL Interpreting Services in Louisville, Kentucky, and Lisa Colson from Game Day Captions for closed captioning. I'll be providing a brief overview of the UNSHAME Kentucky campaign, what our approach is, and then we'll move along into our presentation for today. So UNSHAME Kentucky is an evidence-based behavior change intervention aimed to reduce the addiction-related stigma held by Kentuckians. The campaign is delivered by Shatterproof. We're a national nonprofit committed to ending the addiction crisis in the United States, and we're in close partnership with CORE. The project is supported by CORE through the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration grant, so SAMHSA. So our intervention has three main objectives. First, we want to increase knowledge about opioid use disorder and that recovery is not only possible, but it's probable with the proper support. We want to improve attitudes towards those living with and or in recovery from OUD. And lastly, to develop Kentuckians' understanding of the disease so people can better support loved ones with OUD. So we have a evidence-based three-pillar approach. The first one is community connection, which is super important as we partner with community-based organizations across the state. We will conduct needs assessments, and this will let us know the areas we need to address. We also have a community impact committee made up of people who reside in the state. They help give insight and keep a pulse on the campaign. They look at the areas we are hitting, where we can improve, and how everything is being received in the state. Next, our story sharing is an integral part of our campaign. It's important to put a face to the disease. We collect stories from people in recovery, people who have friends or family in active addiction or recovery, or maybe someone who has lost someone to the disease. And lastly, we will collect stories from treatment providers or people who serve this population. These stories create a much better connection between those affected and the general public, increasing empathy and understanding. The last piece, which is what we're doing now, are these webinars. They help us use knowledge from our community partners and knowledge from the community to figure out what are the exact messages we need to be putting out. We will then create webinars on these topics to help educate the general public. So this was just a brief overview. If you have any questions, you can find info on unshameky.org, so unshameky.org, or you can reach out to me directly at ariley@shatterproof.org, and this information will be made available at the end, or I can even put it in the chat. So now we are moving on to the presentation called The Balancing Act, Navigating Substance Use Disorder and Recovery Through the Holidays. For the December 2023 UNSHAME Kentucky webinar, we will be exploring how to build recovery capital and resilience during the holiday season with 4 panelists who have both lived and professional experiences with various perspectives, including being a person in recovery, losing a loved one to substance use disorder, practicing addiction counseling, teaching, consulting, and providing research on addiction and recovery. Participants will take a journey through the hardships of lived experience during the holiday season and practical ways to manage their substance use disorder during both difficult and celebratory times. Panelists will answer questions on coping techniques, building support systems, setting boundaries, and communicating with loved ones. At the end of the webinar, each participant will be able to identify resources and tools to use during this holiday season. So our main learning objectives from this are to identify resources and effective coping strategies to get through the holidays. Number 2 is to discuss practical ways to set boundaries with loved ones and colleagues during the holiday season. And number 3 is to identify ways to build support systems, increase self-care, and handle triggers during the difficult and celebratory times. So I'm going to introduce our amazing moderator, Cynthia Robinson. She is a person in long-term recovery. She has been working for the last few years with other people who battle with substance use disorder and are trying to find their own pathway to recovery. It's important to her to help people figure out how to live again in their own successful way. Like she says, everyone has their own recipe. Currently, she works for Deaton and Deaton Counseling as a community outreach worker. Cynthia's heart is full of dedication and passion when it comes to giving back to her hometown, the town she grew up in, and the town she lost herself in. Cynthia married an amazing woman who she gets to experience blessings and growth with. They share their wonderful kids together and are pursuing their education together. She has a goal to advocate for those still suffering in silence, the ones who are no longer here with us, and to fight against the stigma surrounding substance use disorder. Also, Cynthia is a community impact committee member for our UNSHAME Kentucky campaign. She just joined recently and already stepped up to be the moderator on this panel, which we are super excited about. So now I'm going to turn this over to Cynthia to introduce our panelists for today.
Thank you so much, Ashley. I'm very grateful to be here. The first panelist I want to introduce is Kim Himes. She's a very good friend of mine, and she works at Voices of Hope. She is program assistant. Kim Himes has struggled in active addiction for 14 years. She has lost her children, her home, her car, and ultimately spent the last 3 years of her active addiction as an IV drug user. She is now a person in long-term recovery and has worked in recovery for 8 years. MOUD was important for her recovery. Kim has been a recovery coach at Voices of Hope for 1 year and was recently promoted to the program assistant. She is grateful today for her sobriety, to have her children back, and to be able to give back to the community. Thank you, Kim, for being on the panel. Next is Jessica Swan. She is executive director of nonprofit recovery consulting. She has extensive experience in clinical addiction counseling, research, development, training, evaluation, and reporting for legal professionals, nonprofits, governmental agencies, and communities across the nation. She writes addiction recovery curriculum for treatment programs, offers counseling for individuals and families with substance use disorders, and provides addiction recovery consulting for organizations. Jessica specializes in helping high-level professionals and their families, including professional athletes, doctors, judges, lawyers, and pilots. She has extensive experience working with the justice system and its intersection with mental health and substance use. Jessica is a national leader and educator in the addiction recovery field, teaching on a neurobiological disease of addiction, substance use disorder treatment, and recovery. She has trained multiple disciplines on the neuroscience of substance use disorders, family recovery from substance use disorders, and integrating families in treatment and recovery. She currently contracts with the Farley Center, providing health practitioners monitoring programs, program evaluations, family assessments, and recommendations for treating professionals, and she provides a family treatment program for the Farley Center. She currently provides training and facilitation for law firms and judges across the U.S., and she is Executive Director of Recovery Consulting. Jessica is President-elect for the Virginia Association of Addiction Professionals. Wow, she's got some knowledge. Next is Dr. Anawa LaBelle. She is Associate Professor at University of Windsor. She is a collaborating scientist at Homewood Research Institute in Ontario, Canada. She is a person with lived experience in addiction and has been in recovery for 18 years, utilizing a variety of methods to support her recovery. Dr. LaBelle earned a PhD and MS from the University of Michigan and a BA from the Smith College, all in psychology. In her scholarly work, Dr. LaBelle draws heavily upon positive psychology and her lived experience to study recovery from alcohol and substance use disorder. Dr. LaBelle is passionate about sharing her expertise and experience to help individuals and communities affected by addiction. Thank you so much for being here.
Great.
Next, we have another dear friend of mine, Corey Council. Corey is a Frankfurt resident, and he has spent over 30 years in the restaurant management business. He started his own nonprofit, FADD, Families Against Deadly Drugs, in 2017 after losing his oldest son, David, to an overdose at 23 years old, and became a recovery coach for the Georgetown Police Department in 2020. Today, in addition to his role as recovery coach, he is a recovery support coordinator for the city of Georgetown. Thank you so much for being here, Corey. So I know that I gave you like the bio of everybody, but I just want to go and talk about myself for just a second. I'm a person in long-term recovery, and loss is a big part of my story. It started at a young age, and it really started my addiction. So the holidays for me aren't always so great, and that's why I'm so passionate about this webinar. So if you all would like to go around and introduce yourself just a little bit and give any lived experience that you have for today's topic. Jessica, would you like to start?
Sure, why not? Thank you for the intro and for everyone being here. I'm Jessica Swan, as Cynthia said, and I'm 16 and a half years in recovery from drugs and alcohol. I also am in recovery from depression and anxiety, brain injury, codependency, PTSD, I've been through a lot of holidays now without using drugs or alcohol. And so I bring that to the table today. Although I have a profession that is, backed by education and all of that, really the passion that I have for this work comes out of my personal life and coming from a family of addiction and codependency. So I plan to talk about some of that as we talk through things today. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Kim, would you like to go next?
My name's Kim. I have one person in long-term recovery. I went through a lot of holidays that were extremely difficult in the beginning. So being a person who has been through substance use disorder, multiple pathways of recovery, a lot of holidays, and also lost my son and other loved ones to the disease. I think that's the experience that I'm able to bring.
Thank you so much, Kim. Corey, would you like to go?
Sure. So I appreciate the invite to be a part of this important panel. My name's Corey. I live in Frankfurt. I work in Georgetown. Um, 7 years ago, the stigma totally blinded my ability to help my son, David. And after I lost him in 2017, I kind of stepped back and thought, what could I have done different? So that's when I really dug into learning about substance use disorder, and just try to help other people. I couldn't go back to my regular job, so I really dove in. And ironically, Shatterproof was the first place I got information. When I looked on and saw Gary Mandel's story, it just really touched me. And so I'm really happy to be here with all these great people. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Corey. Dr. LaBelle?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm happy to be here and contribute on this topic. It's something that I really struggled with the first few years, which I think is pretty common, right? How do we navigate social situations, family, gatherings, parties, all of that, and just the emotions that come with the holidays. So I, at this point, have been sober for 18 years, as was stated in my bio. So I've got quite a bit of experience with tools and strategies, but it's also part of what I do with my research. So my primary research is focused on recovery from addiction, alcohol, substance use disorder, and looking at what pathways people take, what strategies they use, and I love especially to look at things like gratitude and helping behavior, which I'll talk a little bit about in response to some of the questions today. So I'm really happy to be here.
Amazing. What a panel we have. I'm just so impressed, I tell you. So the first thing, we'll go ahead and start like questions, and you all share your lived experience and whatever you comes to you to share with us. Can you share some of the personal strategies or coping mechanisms that have helped you navigate the holiday season in recovery or having lost a loved one due to the disease? Corey and Kim, I think this is one of your questions. If one of you.
Sure. I'll start off. So, gosh, probably the biggest thing I do is try to really limit my social media. Getting on Facebook generally is a real big trigger when you see family photos and, other families just happy-go-lucky, and it really just personally, it sucks the life out of me sometimes. So I really try to limit my social media. I try to stay busy and help people navigate recovery. A lot of times I'll isolate at home, staying busy around the house just to keep myself going. I do a lot of naps. Rest really helps during the holidays. And then every year, I think it's going to be a little better, and it never is. So generally, directly after Christmas or some of the major holidays, I generally take off work because one thing that really triggers me is when you come back and everybody's like, "Oh, how was your Christmas? How was this holiday?" And it's just like, as a bereaved parent, you wear a mask to try to limit the harm you can do to others. And so that's kind of the way I look at it, and I really try to manage what I say yes to, and I'm not afraid to say no. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you so much. That was a really good point, and I never really thought of social media. That is really good, and thank you for sharing that.
I spend a lot of time focusing on self-care and boundaries and just kind of honoring myself if I feel like being social or going out, but I don't feel guilty if I decline an invitation if I'm invited. But it's new. It's only been 2 years, so this is, I think, the third Christmas without my son, and the first one was really a blur because it was so close. But I remember I changed a lot. Like I got all new Christmas decorations that year. This year, instead of doing it on Christmas morning and keeping it the way it had always been, we're going to do Christmas Eve. But really, I'm going to stay home and just keeping things more simple. Like I don't really go over and beyond. And if I don't want to answer the phone, I don't answer the phone. I just try to focus on showing up for my other children, my grandson. But I've found a way to honor my son. His name was Carter, but each year at Christmas, find a gift to give his siblings from him. We've had like teddy bears made with his laughter when you squeeze it. We did some blankets out of his clothes. I've made some canvases, things like that. But I think just honoring the way I feel, because the expectation is that this time of year should be joyful and it should be all these things. And I do try to focus on gratitude a lot and like the memories of his life that were good and always talk about it. But I'm also blessed that I'm in a setting with my employment that everyone knows and I can support, or if I need to talk about it and I can share his story and mine, and I know that I'm supported and not judged. So I think that helps too, being accepted.
Absolutely. Those are really, really important things, like having that support of people that you can talk to. Absolutely. All right. What advice do you have for creating emergency plans or exit strategies in case of unexpected challenges during the holiday?
I'll go first on this one. So a few ideas. Early on in my training for addiction counseling, I learned a technique where you can get out a little note card, or a 3x5 note card. If you remember, if you're my age, you remember doing speeches in high school with them or whatever, that kind of thing. Take one of those out and you can write down a few things on it, like a person that you would call in case of an emergency, like a sponsor, mentor, best friend, trusted family member, somebody that's not wherever you're headed. So you have that phone number. And the reason why the card is like, in case you lose your phone or your phone dies, or you get in an argument with someone and they take your phone, or something weird happens, right? So you at least have that like hard copy of that one or two closest people that you would trust to give a call to. The other thing on that card that you can do is if you have a favorite saying that helps you recenter, or like, hey, Jessica, remember to breathe, right? Or where's your feet, or that kind of thing. You can write that down. And it can be like a little bit of a recentering component of like, okay, I'm starting to really feel anxious. Let me look at my card. What did I write down? It's sort of like having a few little scripts or something for yourself to help you like come back to center. And then the other thing is you can get a plan by like prior to going somewhere, making sure you bring someone with you and making sure you have an exit strategy that includes transportation. So a transportation plan. So, okay, I'm going to this place. I don't drive, but I know that I could Uber out of here if I needed to, or I know that I could catch the 5 o'clock bus and I'll be fine, right? That kind of thing is really important. For me personally in early recovery, I would bring someone with me who was also in recovery to things. And we would carpool together. So we would make a plan, a commitment together, and then leave together. And that's just really important in case you get in a jam or it's uncomfortable or someone's getting drunk or a multitude of things can happen. So I just feel like having that strategy in place is really important. As the note card goes, I would just circle back to you can write down a thing like, here's an address for where there's meetings all day on Christmas Day, or here is another event that's going to be a sober event that I might go to as an alternative, that kind of thing. Having that lined up prior to going somewhere is really helpful.
Thank you. Corey, did you want to go ahead and add to that?
Yeah, those were all great points. Like I said earlier, I don't mind saying no to a lot of things. If somebody invites me to a holiday gathering, I really think hard about it. Who's going to be there? I don't commit to giving rides to anybody. Generally, I'll have my wife drive separate, so I have an immediate exit if I need to go. So yeah, that's really the short and sweet, is just having a true exit plan. And, I find myself, instead of mingling with the adults a lot, I generally focus on the kids in the room, because they have so much joy, and it kind of, takes your mind off things. So I generally like to hang out with the kiddos, and I'll sit at the kids' table to eat, and I'm always at the seat where the door is right there. So those are my exit plans.
Those are wonderful. Dr. LaBelle, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I think in addition to either having someone there or having someone on standby who knows that you're going into that situation, if you're bringing someone with you, a sibling or just a safe person at the event, have a phrase or a word that you say where it's apparent that you need to go, so you don't have to pull them aside and explain that. So you just want to ask for pecan pie or something, and then be able to get out of there, and absolutely have an exit strategy. And some people that are watching or that might watch this in the future, early recovery, I think, is the hardest. And so it's really not going to get any harder than it is this first time or second or third time. It gets a lot easier. And for me, part of that was I wasn't aware of all the triggers. I didn't, and that actually leads into one of our next topics. I didn't know what the triggers were at that point. And so I didn't really know how to sidestep them. And so one of the suggestions I would make is pay attention to those. Pay attention to what makes you really uncomfortable, and just jot it down. Start a note in your phone so that you have that information going into New Year's and then the upcoming holidays for the next year, so that you can be a bit more proactive and learn. For me, one really big trigger is when people start getting sloppy, even just a little tipsy, I have to go. I can't be around it. It's a reflection of me and what I was like, and I just get really uncomfortable. So I use my exit strategy. I leave by myself. I take an Uber. If I'm there with a sibling or a friend, I ask about that pecan pie and then get out. And then I think the other comment that I had pertains more to triggers, so I'll just pause on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Those are really good points. And even with triggers, it could just be like a smell. A smell could change everything for you. So the next thing we're going to talk about is triggers. Are there certain situations or environments that you or someone in recovery may find particularly challenging, and how do you suggest they navigate those? Dr. LaBelle, you want to go ahead and take that one?
Yeah, it's easier if you know what they are. If you don't, again, pay attention and just have people on call. For me personally, peer support has been an absolutely essential. I don't always see clearly what's going on, but I know if something's not right. And so just having people on standby, knowing what the triggers are, noting them as they come up. I know for me, one of the ways that I handled being triggered was just to go in a different room, often the bathroom, the restroom, and just do a reset, right? Just a full on reset. and then go back into the situation. And I don't know why this works, but it's like magic. When I am in a trigger situation, I just go into default be of service. So how can I help the host clean up or serve food or make food, or how can I help someone be more comfortable, right? So often in those first few years, especially, I was asking my mom if she needed a warm sweater. I was asking my dad if he needed something to like. I tried to be of service, and that just got me out of myself and helped me feel a bit more at ease. So those, it's just a couple that I have. I'll let Kim take over. If I think of more, I'll raise my hand again.
I don't know, I think large crowds and like large gatherings, especially with people who are newly in recovery, can be overwhelming and anxiety. And then I think another trigger is if you're attending family functions where there's been like pain and harm done, and there's still that discord. I think it's hard for the person newly in recovery to have to walk into that tense environment and feel uncomfortable or like feel shame and guilt still, and maybe they're not quite ready. And I think financial stressors too, because I think that once, like, I remember like when I first got sober, like I had like these big events and I would want to like have the best Christmas for the kids, or, everything to be great. So I put a lot of expectations on myself that weren't always realistic. But I don't know. I've just learned for me, the best really is just not going to those. If I feel I'm going to be uncomfortable or it's not going to be good or healthy, I just don't go until things get better. Or like you had been mentioned, having an exit strategy, like maybe go but have a set time. Like I'm only going to stay 45 minutes, and then I do a lot of processing through communication. So I've really learned to utilize my support system and pick up the phone, even if I feel crazy or I'm calling 10 different people telling the same story. Because as I'm talking to them, I'm getting their feedback and support, but I'm also processing the feelings that I have and what I'm going through.
Yeah, I know, I had to have an exit strategy for, like me and my brother not getting along for so many years. And then, it really put a strain on our relationship. So, and he still is, suffering from alcoholism. And even now, that our relationship is going a lot better, I'm still, like, I keep it in the back of my mind, because it could change at any time, especially when he does start getting sloppy. Okay, so how do you feel, or how do you communicate? Hold on, sorry, let me start over, guys. How do you establish and communicate boundaries with friends and family during the holiday events? Corey, you want to go ahead and start that one?
Yeah, gosh, family and friends, that's kind of tricky. So generally with child loss, your group of friends really every year gets smaller. Whether it's them worrying about saying the wrong thing. So, the close friends I do have, I enjoy their time. But I just remind them that, whether it's Christmas or any other holiday, it never goes away. A lot of people think, well, it's been 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, it's got to be getting better. And they just don't understand it never changes. Things, the waves get smaller, but they're still there. Family, I just say, I'm real close on how long is this event going to be? Who else is going to be there? And then I'll limit, how long I'm there. Usually I'll get there early. So if I leave early, I don't feel guilty about that. So, just kind of opening up and letting them know, hey, I don't want you to have to tiptoe around with me there, because that's not a good feeling either. I want it to, be a fun event. You don't want to suck the life out of the party, but, just realizing what triggers you during those certain events, and just kind of, you know, watching out. That's kind of what I do.
Thank you, Corey. Jessica?
I love all of that. And I also, I think if the longer we're sober and in recovery, the easier it gets to figure out what we need, which is kind of what someone else was saying, right? I think Dr. Lavelle was saying that it's critical to start to discover that, right? And so if I can know what I need, then I can express what I need. And I think that's really the essence of setting boundaries, just generally, is like understanding what I want and need for my life and myself, and then learning how to have the courage to say it out loud directly to someone, which can be hard, I think, in those first years. And not only because maybe like, and I think for me, it was hard to figure out what it was. Like, I don't know what I need. I don't know how I'm feeling. I'm trying to figure that out right now. So it's hard for me to say to you what I need because I don't know. Again, I think like if you can have a few of those written out prior to going and like into a family situation, or having a few conversations with some of the closer family members that you have about, you know, I'm afraid about going to this event and what it's going to be like, and I don't know what I might need, and I might need to leave early. I'm not sure, right? Or I might need to you know, go to a meeting, or go call somebody and take a break, or go for a walk, right? I might need to do those types of things during this. Can I call on you? Like, will you go for a walk with me if I need to? Like, you just need to have that kind of thing at the ready. It's just a friendly reminder from me as the like family recovery person, specialist person, that, you know, the I will and I will not statements are really important. So if you can figure out, if you're a family member and you're trying to figure out boundaries, start with I will or I will not, and then fill in the blank. And on top of that, I would say no is a complete sentence, and self-compassion is a part of this process, right? So just, you know, it's about giving yourself permission, about giving ourselves some compassion and some grace right now to, like, you know, sometimes life is messy and we're messy people, and that is okay too. So it's just like a little bit of like space for all of that to happen.
Thank you. Corey and Kim, this one's for you. What role has a support system played in your ability to stay in recovery or deal with the hardship of losing a loved one during the holidays? Kim, I'll let you start.
I have a sponsor, and she also lost a child. It's been 10 years for her, but it was to an overdose. And then I don't know, like I think in the early parts of the loss, I spent probably like over a year just in isolation because there wasn't a lot of people who could relate to losing a child. And people tend to want to fix it, or they say things that they think make you better, but it's really offensive. And so, but now I've been blessed that, well, I had my sponsor, but I found a therapist, and she had lost a child, and it had been 10 years for her. And then my school teacher from I think 8th grade, and then Carter had her year before retirement, so we both had the same teacher, but she had lost a child 3 weeks before Carter passed, and so hers was a motorcycle accident for her son. But we've been able to share the journey together, and so I think having people who can understand, and especially like with my sponsor, where she has the recovery piece and also the lived experience with losing a child, I don't feel as isolated. And so it's nice to have people who can understand or be willing to accept me where I am that day. Because I think with grief, it changes constantly. So you just never know what each day is going to bring or where you're going to be at. So I think having the support that's willing to have that space for you to be where you're at and where you can be open and honest about how you feel and not have to wear a mask or be fake about it.
Yeah, I ditto that for sure. So support systems early after David passed, I remember going to a grief counselor for a while. But the frustrating thing with that is you rarely find a therapist that has lost a child. So I didn't make it that long through it. It was like, well, you really don't know. She was a great therapist, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't as genuine. So that's when I kind of reached out. The Compassionate Friends has been a great help to me. There's not a lot of men that talk about it. They kind of delve into work, and you don't hear much. So that was one reason I wanted to get in the space and talk, because I think, men need help too. So the Men in Grief group is great. Like I said, the circle of friends gets smaller, but they are the best ones. And I usually don't have to worry about calling them. And generally on the internet, you'll find other bereaved parents, and, talking with them and knowing you're not alone really helps, talking with somebody that knows what you're going through. So.
Thank you all for sharing that. I have lost a child as well. It was, at birth, but still, that's a loss of a child. And I think, what really helped me was the Me Too's that I started hearing. Like, yeah, I've lost a child, and guess what? Now I'm in recovery. That's what it took for me to even get into recovery, just hearing that. And I think a lot of times that people just don't know what to say. Like, there's nothing that's going to make you feel better about losing a child. Like, that's just the reality of it. It's been many years, and it still hurts, and it still hits me out of nowhere. And the what ifs, just very hard. And I'm really sorry that you all have to go through that.
Can I jump in one more time? So one of my biggest support systems, I think, this past year for me. So at the police department, we help people in active addiction in active use, try to find, recovery, and that's hard. But this past year, I've been able to be in staffing at recovery court, and that has really helped to balance it all out for me. Nobody likes to be in court, but I enjoy hearing seeing the changes in people. And then when they talk about reconnecting with family, that's a huge support for me. You got to have the good, and you got to see the good and stuff. So just want to throw that out there.
Absolutely. We can find gratitude in anything. All right, next question. Is there research that shows the success of mutual support groups? Dr. LaBelle, if you want to start us with that one.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Absolutely, there's research that supports the efficacy of not just 12-step, but all peer support. And really, it's a matter of getting matched up with the one that's going to work best for you. And only you are going to know which one of those make the most sense. And so I would encourage folks to take a look at, there's a Recovery Research Institute out of Harvard done by a gentleman by the name of Dr. John Kelly. They put out really high quality research. There's a ton of articles on there, including a Cochrane review, which goes back 25 years looking at the efficacy of 12-step specifically. There's another article done by a researcher named Zamor who looked at, I think they compared LifeRing, SMART, 12-step, maybe Women for Sobriety, and found some differences, but they're all effective when someone commits to them fully and does the stuff that, other people, that they allow themselves to be supported. And I think what struck me in my work and in my own personal journey is I've looked into just about every pathway that I've heard about that people use to get sober. I've looked at it. I've read the literature. I've done a deep dive into it. And all of them contained an aspect of peer support, right? Mutual support, peer support. And I think that's because the disease of addiction is so isolating right? And for me, part of why I drank, part of it was self-medicating for you know, a mental health condition, but it was also to feel a part of and to be able to socialize and not be so uncomfortable and awkward. And so it makes sense that the solution, part of the solution, would be connection with people, with peers, right? And so certainly a lot of research that supports the efficacy. And again, looking into those options. So I'm affiliated with She Recovers, which is gender specific help and support for women. I know a bit about Smart Recovery, Life Ring, Recovery Dharma. I've done a lot of research on that program specifically. Indigenous approaches, the Red Road to Wellbriety, right? So there's a lot to choose from, and there wasn't when I started my journey about, you know, almost 20 years ago now. So find what works and find someone to help you, mentor, sponsor, whatever the term is in the program that you're choosing, and go from there.
I'll just echo what Dr. LaBelle said, and I love Dr. Kelly's work, and they have a great website, the Recovery Research Institute. So if people are interested in research work that supports the efficacy of mutual support groups, do take a look at their work. I just wanted to mention that there are like peer support reduces mortality rates, increases life expectancy, therefore decreases disease in individuals, increases self-efficacy. There's increases engagement in treatment processes. So there's just a lot of really great things, right? Life satisfaction, quality of life measures go up with peer support connection. So it's a huge plug for understanding that, you know, recovery really is about connection. And that is one of the best healers that we can find, is finding other people like us to connect with and heal together.
Absolutely, that was great. How do you support a family member who may be struggling with substance use disorder or is in recovery during the holiday celebrations? Jessica, that is you.
I could have just stayed unmuted. Sorry about that. So, you know, I think I started to mention this earlier. One of the things that we need to, I think, try to give ourselves permission to do is to like have some courage to talk honestly and directly with each other. You may not come from a family where that was the protocol. You know, it wasn't like a family where you're allowed to say how you felt. But I think one of our jobs as people in recovery is to break those old rules, break those family rules of addiction, and have some courage to start saying how you're feeling, using I statements, and those types of like little tricks that you learn through mutual support or through treatment work are really helpful to apply when you're talking with friends and family during this time. So it's talking about yourself and your own experiences, talking about myself from I need perspective, I want, I feel, is super like de-escalating. It's super helpful, it's super empowering, and it also allows a level of vulnerability to find a little more connection with the person. And, you know, the other part of this is like asking, you know, what is it that you feel like you might need? You know, you can say that to someone. What is it that I could do that would be helpful? You can say that directly to them and find out if they know. Or I'm here for you if you need anything, right? That kind of language, that's super helpful. I also had mentioned earlier, offering like, hey, do you want to go for a walk? Or let's take a break halfway through this event. You know, family's overwhelming. Let's like go outside for a half an hour or something, you know, like making little plans like that to be together in smaller numbers, I find to be extremely helpful. I get overwhelmed by family events. And so I think that kind of thing can be extremely supportive. I think that's everything I have. I might think of something else. I don't know.
All right, and I just want to let everybody know, if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat and we will answer those at the end. Next question is, how do you approach conversations with a loved one who may not fully understand your recovery journey during the holidays? And Dr. LaBelle?
Yeah, that's it's hard when people don't understand, but then again, we can't really expect someone who's never experienced addiction to fully understand addiction. And so I think part of the thing that I thought of immediately when I saw this question come through is like, not everyone's going to understand, and that's okay. If someone's asking, I'll give information. I'll even provide resources. I've had, my partner and close family friends read parts of the recovery material from my program, that's geared towards like understanding the disease, and that's helpful. But if they're not willing, I'm certainly not going to suggest it or force it on them. So I think it's really about being clear and figuring out what your needs are, being clear about what they are, communicating those, and then knowing who is open to knowing more about it and who might not be, and sort of sidestepping those conversations, right? Like I work with a lot of women in early recovery, especially, and have for many, many years. And often we'll see people whose family and close friends don't believe that they have an addiction, and sometimes will still continue to offer or make comments about why they still go to meetings and stuff like that. And there's two different ways that you can think about it. Is it my job and my responsibility to make them understand and to keep repeating myself over and over again, or do I just accept that they're not going to understand and sort of shrug it off and be prepared for those sorts of comments? And I mean, I think for me personally, I have more serenity and peace in a situation where I know that I'm going to go in and, Auntie, whoever is going to start with the comments, and I'm going to have someone that I can text or that I can call or get out of the situation if it's too intense. Sometimes we're in situations with family or friends at parties where people are drinking and they want, they're offering you drinks, and, well, why aren't you drinking? Right. When in early recovery for me, that was a huge deal. I completely froze. I didn't know what to say in response to that question. And I felt like, a duck out of water. And, now many, many years later, I just say, no, thanks. I've had enough. I have had enough, right, in my lifetime. I haven't had a drink in 18 years, but that's a sufficient response. And anyone that's going to push on that, I can really just say, you're being pushy. Stop. I'm good, right? I also have to remember that me not drinking is a way bigger deal than it is for other people. Most people aren't that pushy. You say no, they're like, oh, okay. I don't need to offer my, my life story up as a response to why I don't want to drink. I mean, I can if the person's open to it and they ask why and they want to know, but I don't have to, right? Especially early in the beginning, because sometimes that leads to me being more vulnerable than I want to in a situation. And so, just some things to think about communicating with loved ones and situations that might come up.
Thank you so much. All right, time flies, I tell you. We have some questions. Anybody can answer this. How can one learn to stay present during the holidays if they are grieving?
Wow, that's a great question. Really hard to pinpoint that one. You know, grief is really different for every one of us. One thing I do is I try not to put any expectations on myself. That's why I do so much pre-planning before I go somewhere. It's okay if your mind wanders off. And, like I said, for me, surrounding myself with the young ones really helps, me feel like I'm still being part of the celebration. And I'm not really having to, um, you know, have any different expectations and, worry about what other people are going to think. Kids are so random and, fun. That's how I do that. So yeah, just not putting expectations on yourself and, saying, telling yourself it's okay, it's okay, however it works out.
I don't know, I
Thank
think
you.
it's early for me, but I try to start my day with what can I do today to honor my son's life? And that kind of keeps me in a positive place. But like presently, like where am I at? What am I doing? Who am I helping? What am I giving back and adding to? And trying just to like live and honor him. But it's definitely a very, very tricky thing.
Thank you. Our next question is, there seems to be a big emphasis currently on designating whether someone has mental health issues or substance use disorder or co-occurring. Do you think the designation of co-occurring is necessary, or whether mental health challenges are always a part of substance use disorder? Dr. LaBelle or Jessica, I'll let you all answer that.
I can start it off anyway. Not always is the answer to the mental health challenge with substance use disorder. However, almost always, right? Super, super common to have, at least a mood disorder and also a substance use disorder, probably more than we know. So, probably more like 75% of folks at least have depression and anxiety with substance use disorders, I think was the most recent research I read about that. And then there's other mood disorders as well, and there's other types of mental health challenges. And trauma, of course, is one of those. And grief and loss are a part of the story too, as we're hearing today. So then that starts to be like a whole lot of people, right? In the fold of healing and recovering from something right now. It sort of depends on the lens you want to put on this, right? Does there need to be a distinction when you're talking to friends and family about things? Not necessarily. But from a clinician standpoint, it's important because we have to know what we're treating and why things co-occur, right? Or what we're treating and why we're treating it and what's behind it and all of that, right? So it kind of depends on what your hat is on why that matters. Generally in life, what matters is that the person that has the issues understands what they need to be in recovery from and what that looks like for them and what works for them. I hope that kind of helps a little bit. I don't know.
We are almost out of time. If one of the panelists would like to answer the other questions, I think there was one more question that we didn't get to, and I'm going to hand this back over to Ashley. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. That was such an amazing panel. I really appreciate it, and I got a lot out of it. I'm just pulling up right now my contact information. Jessica actually made a one-pager with tips. And I actually heard of her through this awesome blog that she wrote about getting through the holidays. So I'm gonna try to send those out to you, hopefully today, or if not soon, the one-pager. So you can all have that, hang it on your fridge if you want, or just have it to get through the holidays. All right, thank you so much, and we'll be closing it now, but please reach out if you want to participate in our campaign in any way. So thank you.